My name is Adam Blaylock. I am the host of A Guy to Car and a Podcast. I'm the singer-songwriter of the Arizona band Evening the Score, and I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 15 years ago, I applied to serve a mission for that church and was sent to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 2 years later, I came home, and I haven't been back since. Until now. This is the story of that trip. So, let's see if I can explain a little bit of the early phases of essentially going on a mission for as long as it takes for a lift to get here. Does that sound like fun? It sounds like fun to me. That's 9 minutes. Alright, Robert. I like your style. So, when you send an application to church headquarters in Salt Lake City, Utah. It goes through a process of review through the church leadership, through revelation. They receive the information of the place where you should be going to serve and going to teach, and then you get a letter in the mail outlining the whole thing. It's not just a letter that says, hey, enjoy Nicaragua or Costa Rica or whatever, here's a plane ticket, drop us a line and enjoy coming home in 2 years. You get a letter that tells you where you're going, what language you'll be speaking, stuff like that. The letter tells you where to report to because you're not being sent directly to your field. What ends up happening is, as a missionary, you receive a lot of training to do what you do. So they send you to a missionary training center. When I went out 15 years ago, The main one is in Provo, Utah, and it's still, as far as I know, the most widely used one. However, they do have many others in the world, or several others at least in the world, that you might be sent to, just depending on, the needs that they have, the language you'll be speaking, things like that. So, me going stateside, meaning on the United States side of the world, and speaking English, I was told to report to the Provo, Utah MTC. When I received my call to be a missionary, that was in the summer of 2001. Probably, I think it was July or August when I actually got the letter in the mail. Just a couple short months later, the United States of America experienced one of its greatest tragedies, September 11th, 2001. I still remember actually where I was. I was working for a cable company, not in the sense of television and stuff that you watch, but a company that installs or pulls cable from place to place and what have you. And in that, I happened to be installing in this big electronics store, kind of like a Best Buy, but it was called Ultimate Electronics. I don't think they're around anymore. But I was installing in one of those places. I remember driving to work in the morning. I was listening to the Howard Stern show, and Howard was talking about what he was seeing there in New York, broadcasting the show and the devastation there. And then I got to work, and we're up in the ceilings pulling cable and what have you, and there's just a whole wall of televisions. So I've got an uncomfortably front row seat to everything that's going on. That being said, the fallout of September 11th, and basically by October 24th, 2001, when I went to the airport to fly to Salt Lake and to be driven to Provo to report to the Missionary Training Center there, the airport was not a great place to be at that time. As such, although it used to be culturally common for families to go with a departing missionary and to see him off, and big hugs and tears and all that sort of thing, because airport security was bananas. My dad just drove me, and we parted ways basically at security. So it was a mess, and it was weird for me because I had flown before, but only with my family. I never flown by myself, so it was a little weird for me, wondering what was going to come next. But as it turns out, airports are actually designed to be user-friendly and for you to be able to find your way really easy. So anyway, once this lift gets here, we're going to jog on over to Sky Harbor Airport and get ready to fly to Salt Lake. Woo! Welcome to Salt Lake City, everybody. Just walking down the what's that thing that connects the plane to the airport? I don't know, that thing. I felt the cold, so I'm officially scared. That's a good thing. Let's go get some bags. You know, I thought this jacket was going to save my life, and now I am certain of it. Thank you, Troy. Hugs and kisses. All right, Hyundai Elantra, let's make a movie. Ooh, no air, no air. That's a bad thing. 26 degrees outside. Now, the last time I was here, I flew in sometime in the morning to Salt Lake International Airport, where I just was, and I was there with a whole bunch of other missionaries, and so there was actually somebody there to greet us, and you know, we ended up getting shuttled off to the Missionary Training Center. So that was that. This trip, I gotta go, you know, get a hotel, and part of what's going to be interesting about portraying this as a documentary is, I mean, you're not going to really get the visceral experience that I got as far as all that goes. However, once I actually do get us to Provo, lots of fun stories about that morning and really just about my few weeks there in the Missionary Training Center, which I'll probably start calling the MTC because it's just more fun to say it that way, and that's how we Mormon folk call it. So, welcome to Salt Lake, boys and girls. Google can shut its stupid mouth because it's 19 degrees here in Salt Lake City. Oh my goodness gracious. No, 18 degrees. It's 18 degrees.
Turn left onto South High Commons Way, then arrive at your destination.
Sometimes, boys and girls, you have just got to treat yourself.
In 500 feet, arrive at Target.
Darn straight we do. Dope. Maybe it's just the Newland in me. Maybe it is my mother's wonderful genes in my soul. There's a mother freaking Perkins in front of my hotel. Are you listening to what I'm saying? There's a Perkins in front of my hotel. To say nothing of the fact that I'm staying in a Mormon classic right here, boys and girls. That's not creepy at all. Look, we don't need that many beds. So, today, we are going to tell a part of the story that has less to do with, actually going to Pittsburgh and actually doing this missionary thing. And we're going to talk about the why. Of the many years that I've been a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of the many years that I've talked to people about going on a mission, one of the biggest questions that I have encountered is why. Why would you do that? Why would you, spend your own money, give up your own time, especially young? I mean, most missionaries serve pretty much right out of high school, and that's 2 years. I mean, that's a lot of college or training or, I don't know, even just fun that you can have as a young person. So why? Why would you go do that? So I figured the best way to talk about the why is to take you to the where. So we're going to go into Salt Lake City. We're going to go to Temple Square. We're going to walk around just a little bit, and we're going to talk about this church, what it is, and why any of us belong to it. Should be fun. Boys and girls, welcome to Temple Square, Salt Lake City, Utah, US of A. So, the story of Mormonism. Back in the 1800s, this country was young, fresh off of its one independence, and there was just a lot of people working hard and building communities, building families, building society. And amidst all of that growth, there was, as history tells us, a great excitement on the subject of religion. And our story takes place in upstate New York, in an area called Palmyra. The Smith family had moved there recently, just bought a farm, and were looking to do what everybody else was doing, just build and see prosperity. So they had several children. I want to say probably 5 or 6 at that time. One of them, one of the younger ones, his name was Joseph. And so Joseph Smith went with his family to a number of different churches, Methodist, Presbyterian, Episcopal, Baptist, a lot of different things, and became very interested in the topic of religion, and then eventually became concerned about the topic, became concerned for his soul. A lot of what was being preached at the time was hellfire and brimstone, and if you don't do it this way, you don't get to go to heaven, etc., etc. So Joseph, went to the meetings and spoke to the pastors and the preachers, and spoke to his family and any friends that he had that might be interested. But he was mainly sticking to his own research, his own study. And it is told to us by Joseph, through his own account, that one day he was reading in the New Testament, the Epistle of James, 1st chapter, 5th verse, which says, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him." And he talks about how that verse really had a lot of impact on him, and how he thought about it a lot. And over, I can only imagine the weeks and months that ensued after his study of that verse, eventually he decided that he needed to ask God, or he would just stay lost. So he selected a place in the woods near his home. He went there one spring morning in 1820, and he knelt down all alone, and he asked God which church he should join. And in his own words, he said, "I saw a pillar of light exactly over my head, above the brightness of the sun, which descended gradually until it fell upon me. And when that light rested upon me, I saw two personages, whose brightness and glory defy all description, standing above me in the air. He said that one of them spake to him, calling him by name, and said, pointing to the other, 'This is my beloved Son, hear him.'" What he went on to say about that was that Heavenly Father, and Jesus Christ, God our Father, and His Son Jesus Christ had come and visit him in that grove of trees, and that the message that they had for him was that he was to be the instrument in restoring Jesus Christ's church and the true gospel to the earth. So that is the genesis of all of this, that there are prophets on the earth, that we have a living prophet today, just like Moses, just like Noah, and that we, through his counsel, worship Jesus Christ and pray to and seek to return home to our Heavenly Father. So I suppose in relation to that story, and how it relates to this story, what becomes so profound about those of us who choose to go out and serve missions, what becomes so profound about that process is that application that I talked about, that we send to Salt Lake City, it goes into the hands of a prophet. And by revelation, through a priesthood authority that they had received, through the grand restoration that Joseph Smith was such an instrumental part of, that we receive that call to go wherever it is that we're going directly from our Heavenly Father, and that call is for us. It is direct to our talents, it's direct to gifts that He's given us, and that we are going to that place to touch a people that we've never met, that we don't know, that we have no connection to other than just being a fellow child of God. And yet, in the eternal expanse of things, we're destined, foreordained to go there and to share things with them and teach them and help them see and find God for themselves. And it's a really beautiful process. So, rookie mistake. That looks like a door. And it is. I think it was at one time a door. It's not how you get into the Salt Lake Temple, come to find out. I actually tried all doors. I think there's like 4 or 5 of them on this building. Tried them all once. Silly goose. Not how you get in. Over there is how you get into the Salt Lake Temple. So, just for any of you who haven't been, maybe planning on going, go over there. Don't do that. Don't do that. Go over there. Nice. This magnificent structure on the right is the conference center. So twice a year, once every 6 months, the general authorities of the church, in other words, the prophet, quorum of the 12 apostles, the quorums of the 70, the auxiliary leaders, the Relief Society presidency, the primary presidency, basically everybody that's, sole purpose is to keep the church living and thriving. They all get together in this building, and as many members as they can fit into it, and they broadcast the meeting all over the world through satellite and internet, and we get to listen to counsel for a weekend. There's several different sessions over several different days, and we all get to tune in and learn about God's love for us, His desires for us, His commandments, and just other things pertaining to our own personal progression and happiness. What's up, dude? How do you look exactly the same 15 years later? Explain that to me.
I'm a little balder.
Do you remember, I don't know, something like getting your mission call? Do you remember that? Was that a big social deal? I know it is in a lot of...
Yeah, we opened it up, and it was exciting, and,
Did you think you were going to go, foreign or anything? Or were you like, no, I'm going stateside?
I was hoping I'd go to Australia or Ireland, because,
So was there a pinch of disappointment where you were just like, Pennsylvania?
No, when I said Pennsylvania, I knew U.S. history, so I was excited.
Nice.
I didn't care, I didn't care so much about that, but, I probably ended up dead with a poisonous thing in Australia, which would have been a better case scenario for me. But, or Ireland, I don't know. I wanted to go foreign, but I'm not smart enough.
I think we all kind of do, just because to tell that story makes it seem like more of an adventure, but to be like, I went to Ohio, it just doesn't have as much drama to it. But
no.
Okay, but
what you do wrong.
I'm glad. I think we were both in that same headspace.
To learn a language.
We did though.
I barely know English.
Yins guys, see you downtown. We learned a language.
It broke my English down even worse.
To be sent to a stateside English-speaking mission. When I first got that call, because I'd gone through a lot of church discipline and what have you, just to even get to the point where I, was given a mission call, so I was grateful for it in that regard. But my dad went to Mexico City, Spanish-speaking. My brother went to Jamaica. They don't have, it's English, but patois is not English. And I got called, to in my opinion, the most like vanilla mission in the world.
Yeah, it kind of is.
And at the time, I was like, okay, I'll go, but it definitely didn't sound. It wasn't sexy. I'm like, these aren't going to be stories that are going to wow the crowds at church meetings and stuff. And I mean, did you go through something similar?
Oh yeah, definitely. You grow up thinking you're going to go on this really exciting, exotic mission. You're going to go someplace really cool, like, you know, where your ancestors were from or something like that. And, you know, you have these dreams of doing that, and then you open it up and Pittsburgh. Like, my first thought was actually, wait a minute, I can't go to Pittsburgh because Stanquist is going to Pittsburgh. Stanquist is already in Pittsburgh. I can't go to the same mission as my buddy from down the street. But then I kind of...
Did that actually happen? I don't recognize that name. Was there somebody...
Stanquist. Dave Stanquist.
But he was there?
Yeah, and he was my companion for 3 months, and it was a disaster.
Hi, Adam.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Wonderful to see you. Come in.
But as far as, I guess, the beginning of your guys' story, in specifically relation to the mission, one of the things that amused me when I thought about talking to you guys was for, 19-year-old boy, we seek to go on a mission. We fill out an application, we go through interviews and things like that, and then if we're lucky, we get a call back and we get to go and serve. You did not have that experience. Your call to serve came in a much less conventional way, and that fascinates me. Can you expound on what happened?
Sure. Okay. We were surprised to get a call from Elder Neil Maxwell's office, and we couldn't imagine what it was about, but we went up to Salt Lake and met with him, and he explored the possibility of our serving a mission. We weren't called at that point, but just...
So he was just observing the terrain. He was just trying to figure out where you guys were at that point, and
was saying that we were being considered to be called.
Okay.
So then we knew
Yeah.
that was a possibility.
But he did say, you might be called back or you might not be called back.
Yeah.
After this fact gathering to determine whether it was a time in our life when we could serve and if there was an appropriate place for us to serve.
Yeah.
But it came just totally out of the blue.
So what was the time frame between that meeting of just checking the terrain and you guys actually getting the call?
It was the next week.
Oh.
And then I called to meet with President Faust.
Wow.
And that's when the call was issued.
What year was that? Was 2000, I guess, is when you guys were called?
Mm-hmm. It would have been in November of 2000.
You went on a mission at a time when that was valued in the church, but not necessarily encouraged, I think. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I actually got a lot of kickback for it.
Why?
Well, that I was dating Rick before. Do you remember this?
I don't think I do.
Okay.
You probably told me. And
you were in my first area, right? I was a
Yes.
brand new missionary.
Yeah.
And I had dated Rick for a little while, And anyway, we have this really long backstory. It took us like 5 years from point of meeting till when we got married. So let me pick it up. When I got home from China,
Okay.
it was December, and my 21st birthday was in February. And my whole life I'd been preparing for a mission and knowing like that's what I wanted to do. So by the time I got back home from China and I started preparing my papers, Rick and I had started dating a little bit at that point, and things were starting to get serious. And I was dating another guy when I was in China, and then I had been writing Rick, and he was home from his mission, and we were just kind of friends, but kind of interested. And as I was getting ready to put in my mission papers, this was February by that point, I was still more serious with this other guy from China, and my bishop said, "Now you're still dating that guy, right? Well, you're putting in your papers, and that needs to end." So that night, I dutifully called him, and we went out, and I broke up with him and said, "I'm sorry, I'm preparing for a mission. My bishop says that no serious dating." And so he knew that I was planning on putting in my papers as soon as we got home anyway. So it wasn't a big shock. But Rick and I weren't officially dating at that point. And so this was, my birthday is February 17th, so it was like right around that time I put in my papers.
I don't remember how to do it. I'm the 18th.
Oh.
I feel like there was...
Kindred spirits.
On the mission, yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, so when I handed in my papers to my bishop, this was back in the day when they had
actual papers, yeah, I can't.
He said, President, or I guess Elder Monson at that point. No, he would have been in the presidency.
Yeah, he was the president.
He's like, President Monson's in our stake. I'm going to go take these to him tonight. I'm calling on Wednesday. And so Wednesday came and went, and I didn't have my mission call. And I ended up waiting like 5 weeks. Was it 5? It was 5 weeks. It was the weekend before General Conference that my call finally came. So meanwhile, all that time, I'm waiting for a mission call. I'm still kind of dating Rick, and things started getting more and more serious. And so by the time my mission call came, he had already planned out to go to Philadelphia for the summer to sell house systems, alarm systems. And I opened up my mission call, and I was expecting this, like old Call to Serve video.
Yeah.
Where everybody's like, ah! I was expecting that moment. And I read the Pittsburgh mission, and everyone in the room, all of my family, Rick's sitting right next to me, and they've got like phones going and everything. Everybody's like, it's a sign! You're not supposed to go to mission, you're supposed to get married!
So this is the Provo Temple. It's the feeder temple for the area, but specifically for the MTC, this is the place that the missionaries would get to go to worship and perform ordinances for the dead and further spiritually prepare themselves to go to their various fields of assignment and serve God and teach His gospel. So, very special place to a lot of missionaries. this is the MTC. Essentially, you get shuttled in here from the airport, 19, 20 years old, scared out of your mind, but willing and determined to fill this missionary slot, this lifestyle, this calling to go out into the world and preach Jesus Christ and Him crucified. Day one, you basically enter the MTC. You come into a room, kind of a small auditorium, and I don't know if they still do it this way, but back when I showed up, they split the room into two different groups. On the left side, you have all the missionaries that were basically like me, missionaries that had showed up to the MTC by themselves. Nobody brought us. We just, took the plane ticket and came. On the right side of the room was all the missionaries that came with their families. Mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, grandpas, grandpas, brothers, sisters, whatever form of family they showed up in. And you would all sit down in this room. They had a big projection screen in the front of it, and they showed a video that was essentially, welcome to your mission, and I think both to get you excited about this opportunity and also just to sort of reinforce the holy nature of the work that you have opted to engage in. And after the video, I think there was some worker, somebody associated with the MTC that would say a few brief remarks, probably the MTC president, now that I think about it, or maybe somebody in the presidency. And then they would basically say, okay, we need all the missionaries to go out this door, and we need all the family members to go out this door on the other side. So, all the families are hugging and crying over their newly called missionary. And I remember sitting on the other side, sitting on the side of the missionaries that had just come on their own. And I remember, we were kind of just making little quippy comments to each other about, oh, sissies. Oh, look at those guys, having to have their hands held to go on their missions and stuff. But that's not true. All of you that your families took you to the MTC, good on you. It's nice to have that support system. Missions are hard. So anyway, all the missionaries part from their families, and they go down this little hallway, and essentially the process starts. I remember they pulled us into a little room, and there was a guy there who was checking haircuts. Sometimes he was like, all right, you're good, keep going. And sometimes he was like, make an appointment this week to, see one of our barbers here. We need to trim you up a bit. You get your name tag, which is a big moment in the missionary experience, because essentially, there's a few things about that name tag that are significant to each missionary. One is it's got your name on it. So for the next 2 years of your life, your name is going to be public knowledge because it's just posted on your chest. You're literally wearing your name on your sleeve. But beyond that, for the male missionaries, it says elder before their name, either in English or in whatever language of the country that they're going to serve. And for the females, it says sister, which is part of the office that they hold as missionaries. So although, 1 to maybe 3 days before you actually go into the MTC, you have hands placed on your head by priesthood authority in the area that you come from, be it a stake president or whoever it might be, that sets you apart as a missionary. When you come into the MTC and you get that name tag, it's kind of like now it's real. Now I am elder or sister, whoever. So you get your name tag, and basically you go to your room. If I remember right, they tagged our bags at the airport in some way where our bags were just waiting for us in our room. So it ends up at that point, just not that I've been to college and I can really speak to this, but it ends up just being kind of a college dorm experience at that point. Somewhere in that mess, I don't remember exactly at what stage, but you're assigned your companion. For me, I got Elder Fuchs. I think his first name was Brandon. So Brandon Fuchs was from Idaho. I don't remember what part, but I'm guessing one of the more suburban areas, nothing too rural or farmy. But he was a really good kid, and I'm not 100% sure when it happened, but at some point in our companionship, we started to kind of disconnect, I guess, emotionally from each other. We weren't getting along for some reason. Being English speaking, most of the purpose of the MTC is to just teach you what you're going to be teaching, to lay out the discussions is what they call them, or what they used to call them anyway. It's changed a little bit now. And to just give you an idea of the kind of the order that the things are taught, and just how you're walking people through the beliefs of the church and the doctrines and what have you. So I was only here 3 weeks. And in that 3 weeks, somehow he and I just weren't really getting along all that well. But there was this one night where our district, essentially they group missionaries in the mission field in different types of groups. Like the smallest group, which is usually, 2 to 8 companionships of missionaries, that's called a district. And then a cluster of districts is called a zone, and then a cluster of zones is the mission. It's your entire mission that you belong to. So my district had, I think there was 6 elders and 4 sisters, if I remember right, my district. And so, because in the dorm situation, they separate the elders and the sisters, we saw the sisters in classes and things like that, but then we would, go to our separate dorms and stuff. So in the dorms, we elders lived close to each other. We lived in adjoining rooms and what have you. And so, in one of the last nights in the MTC before I was going to leave, me and I think 3 of the other elders in my district were going to Pittsburgh together. So in one of the last nights before we left, we all decided to get together, I think in me and Fuchs's room, and we just stayed up, which is not something you're supposed to do as a missionary. You go to bed at 10 o'clock. And we were up until like 1 or 2 in the morning just talking. And somehow me and Fuchs had shared separately, like independently, some things that we'd gone through as a child, some like abuse stuff that we'd dealt with. And it brought us so close in just that last, day or whatever we campaigned, to the point that when I got on the bus to get taken to the airport to go to Pennsylvania, Fuchs was in tears, and I was, gonna miss him too. It was really tender. And so, the MTC, like, it's a really compressed experience of getting to know yourself, getting to know other people, getting to know the gospel of Jesus Christ, which, regardless of whether you've been a member your whole life or not, is such a vast, eternally deep thing. So you start to see in this place that the mission that you have applied for and that you've been called on is probably going to be more complex than you originally had imagined. And yet, the power of this place is, it gets you so pumped to do that. back. We are back in the Burgh. It's crazy. I genuinely don't remember this airport at all. I mean, you know, I know where I'm going. The signs are telling me, but just remember like getting here the first time or coming back to leave. I don't remember it at all. This is bananas. Well, let's do this chapter of the story with the Kia. Does that sound like fun? Well, it wasn't fun getting it, so... I mean, you know, what good's it telling a story if the telling of the story doesn't grate a little bit of the skin off of the teller, you know? That adds emotional richness to what's happening. Good times. Wow! Oh, any missionary that knows this place is having a flashback right now. Yeah, there it is. The Green Tree Chapel. So this is the Green Tree Chapel. When the missionaries would get flown in to the Pittsburgh area to serve their mission, this is likely the first place that they would come. They would pull up in these big vans and, you know, we'd pile out. I think there was 10 some odd missionaries that came out with me. And we piled into that chapel and we had a meeting. Like, I have a vague memory of walking into a room with all of these missionaries that I knew, the ones that I was in the MTC with. And there was a bunch of other missionaries in the room, and those missionaries were going to be the trainers of each of us. And so we got sat on one side of the room and they were already sitting on the other, and President Cameron got up and, you know, gave some remarks and what have you. And I think all of us were just thinking the same thing. Like, we're listening, we're tired, it's a pretty long flight to Pittsburgh. And we're all just sitting there thinking, who of those weird looking people over there do I have to go home with tonight, and what's that going to be like? So this building right here is where I met Joseph Bonnell, who was my first companion. He was this like short, blonde Alaskan kid. Really quiet, kind of geeky, but in a funny way. At least once I got to know him, I really came to enjoy him. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stories that I think I could probably tell about the Green Tree Chapel, but this, boys and girls, is where it all started for me, right here in Pittsburgh. Wow. Wow. This is the Leechburg Bridge.
Turn right onto Market Street. Then the destination is on your
Crossed
left.
this thing so many times as a missionary, both directions. Wow. There it is. There's my first apartment. Right there, right on the corner. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe I did this.
The destination is on your left. 103 Market Street.
Cannot
Arrived.
believe I'm here. Well, this is it. So, we were just back at the Green Tree Chapel, and my mission experience went directly from the Green Tree Chapel to these apartments right here. Now, mind you, since we don't live there, we're not going to go inside, but we lived up on the second floor in the corner apartment right there. Now, when I was here, I slept right by that window, right there. And I was able to look out of my window and see things. And it looks like there's some stuff that they built, some shops and such that weren't here before, because this was all pretty bare. But I have a picture that I might even try to insert here, out that window up there, that's staring directly at this bridge over here, the Leechburg Bridge. And that was my view for 7.5 months while I was here. I guess there's something poetic about me sitting just underneath that window and talking about first getting here all those years ago. Again, Joseph Bunnell, who I came to love over time and getting to know him. Initially, he was just a really quiet guy. And so we got here, and we got up into that apartment. And it's actually a good-sized apartment. It's basically 2 full bedrooms. We were driving into town, and Elder Bunnell said, I mean, you don't have anything, so maybe we should go to the grocery store and we should get you some food just so you can tide you over until Tea Day, preparation day, so we can go out and actually do full shopping. And we get back, and I put my stuff in the fridge, and we walked into the bedroom. He basically says, "There's your bed." It was the one right next to the window up here, and he said, "Let's get some rest. I'll see you in the morning." And he goes over next to his bed and kneels down and says his nightly prayers, and then just climbs up in bed, and he's asleep pretty quick. And I do a little bit of unpacking, but I think the first night I was just trying to get to my nightwear as far as shorts and like a t-shirt kind of thing. And I climbed into that bed, and I looked out that window, that October night window at the Ralph and the Leechburg Bridge, and at the time I think it was a video store across the street. And I'm looking up at the ceiling, just these, porous, spongy-looking tiles, and it just starts to hit me harder than it ever did at the MCC. Harder than it ever did even when I was preparing and, applying to go and be a missionary. It hit me that I'm here. And, when I wake up the next day, me and this guy, this awkward Alaskan, are going to go out into this place and start talking to people about Jesus. And I was scared for the first time in the whole experience. And I just cried. I just laid there and cried. And I tried to be as quiet as I could so as not to, freak out my new companion, thinking that his greenie was having a meltdown. As missionaries, we like to have as much fun as we can with terminology, and what we have come to term new guys or new girls, new ladies in the mission is greenies because they're green because they're new. So I just wanted to think you got a crazy greenie. But I've imagined, as I've been preparing to just make this film, I've imagined this moment. And I think the thing that I'm most surprised about is that the place is the same. I mean, obviously you can't move that bridge over there. It's just going to be where it is. And the street's the same and everything. But it feels different. It doesn't feel like, I've stepped into the past and some magical time machine or something. This is not the same place that I came to. And I think that's a good thing. The major cities, it's not far from here, it's called Kittanning, so that's what they call the geographical area that he and I serve in. When I heard that in our Kittanning area that we were going to go to Leechburg to our apartment to, take up residence where our apartment was at, I just thought that was like the weirdest thing. Like that was just the darkest thing to call a place. I just thought, who would live in a place and have affection for a place and call it Leechburg? And that's, I don't know. So, that's night one of the mission. It only gets better from here. So this is beautiful Leechburg, Pennsylvania in the daytime. So if you can imagine, I essentially would have woken up day one, came with my companion out of this door right here. And if I remember correctly, we took a jog that way. We walked probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7 miles to a rural area down there. And we just started knocking doors. And when I say doors, I mean like there were houses that were, I don't know, maybe 100 feet apart. Pennsylvania, at least out in the rural areas, is like that. There's just a lot of distance, a lot of spread between residences. So one of the main reasons I brought you back here to see this place during the daytime is there's a community not far from here called Hyde Park. And there's this little bridge that takes you over to Hyde Park. And I just thought it would be really fun to cross that bridge with you guys, because me and Elder Bunnell would walk over there, you know, multiple times a month, and it just became kind of a nostalgic place for me. So we're gonna go walk across the Hyde Park Bridge. I mean, you would think I would come down here certain that I would find it, or with some idea where it was. And, you know, Apple Maps helped a bit, but wasn't 100% sure I'd find it. But I did. It's right over there. And I'm pretty excited about this. Well, this skinny, rusty yellow thing is the Hyde Park Bridge. And that place over there, on the other side of the bridge, is Hyde Park, Pennsylvania. Welcome to Kittanning, Pennsylvania, the largest city and arguably main hub of my first missionary area. This, mind you, is just the downtown portion of said city. But oh my dear, do I love this place. You know, I keep wondering on this trip how many places are going to jog my memory of, you know, places that I have been or what have you. And
Miller's Hoagies here in Kittanning, Pennsylvania. I remember, partly because of these booths, these little wooden booths, and partly because I love sandwiches. It's just one of my things. But we didn't always even come here just to eat. We would meet this guy named John Kalnick down here, kind of a lot. Once a week, something like that. And we talked to him about the church, about Jesus, his teachings, things like that. And John was this really interesting guy. He had like longer hair, had these big like kind of bug-eye glasses. And he was just, he'd engage with us in conversation about religion, but he always just kind of went off on these really interesting and usually pretty odd tangents about aliens or I don't know, whatever. So a lot of the reason why I remember Miller's Hoagies is because of John and his bizarreness. However, they do make good food here, so if you ever make your way up to Kittanning, Pennsylvania, Miller's Hoagies is where it's at. You might notice out there that it's pretty dreary. That's been most of my trip. And that was most of my time in Pennsylvania too. This place is, I don't know, I feel like Seattle gets all the hype about being dreary, but I wonder if Pennsylvania hasn't beat. It's just constantly overcast, or especially in the wintertime, raining or snowing or sleeting or something. But today's actually really nice. The roads are clear, and outside of the dreariness, it's a very Pennsylvania day, which has been fun for me to bomb around in. Funny how this city's pretty big, arguably, as far as Pennsylvania cities go, but it just feels like a small town. It's real quiet, slow-paced. But even just, like, the architecture of Pennsylvania is incredible. And I don't know if then or now I possessed the appreciation for, like, the history of this country that exists in this state. These buildings that are over 100 years old easily, and were built by people with no electricity, and just instead of our day where a house can spring up in just a few months with focused effort, like this stuff took decades to build. And it's still standing, and in some cases still being used. Well, I'm not going to bother trying to take you inside because hospitals tend to have restrictions on going where I was going at the time. But this is the ACMH hospital in Kittanning, where Elder Bennell and I would come to do service. We would march down that little corridor, go inside, head up to one of the upper floors, and we push around a gift cart is what we did, so that people could, you know, buy little trinkets or snacks or books or whatever. That's what we did. A couple hours a week, which is something that most, if not all, missionaries do in the field. Is when you get to your area of service, one thing that you are required to do is to seek out a place in the community that you can provide service. So service is a fun aspect of being a missionary, and this hospital was no exception to that. It was a good time. Me and Bonnell had some fun doing this service.
The destination is on your right. 817 South Park Road. Arrive.
Well, this is the church building that our congregation met at when I served in Kittanning. This is also the church building that the missionaries would have their weekly meetings in. The whole time I was here, originally it was me, Elder Bunnell, Elder Jensen, and Elder Crenshaw. It was the whole district, and we all kind of fed out of this chapel. Elder Matthew Allred came in and was companions with Crenshaw for a while. I got Elder Hancock. Elder Flake was in Freeport for a little while. And then I got shipped out. So, you know, every, I guess once a month or once every couple of weeks or something, we'd have a district meeting that was usually held here at the building. You know, we just go over different things we were teaching or different people that we were working with, and, you know, just training meetings, sharpening our skills and our testimonies as missionaries. This building's where I met, you know, most of the members for the first time. The Eismans, the first time I ever met them that I can remember was here. A lot of good memories of this place. I was in my first area, Kittanning, Leechburg, for 7.5 months.
That's almost unheard of, though.
Yeah, and I was with my trainer for 6 of those. Like, I sent him home, and then they gave me Hancock, and then they're like, okay, we're done with this. No more of you.
Yeah, I always wondered what that was like.
Hancock just was amazing. Like, he calls himself the dude, and it just gets to a point where everybody starts calling him the dude, because you could just get sucked into his persona. Like, we went, maybe in the first week together, to, like, this comic book or this collectibles store, and he bought this, like, 16-inch Evil Dead character that, like, put in batteries. The thing would, like, talk and, like, do motions and stuff, and that thing was on top of the fridge the whole time we were together. Every time he passed it, he'd push the button, and it would say something stupid.
That's
like,
awesome.
Like, can I get a load of my boomstick, or just great lines from that movie. He liked to go running at night, and he had like a Walkman with like rock tapes and stuff. So because of that, I was just like, screw this, I'm in. So I go to the Walmart or something, buy a Walkman, and buy Poison's Greatest Hits, and we like run every night. I acknowledge the disobedience, but we had fun. We would do work. He treated tracting like
what's that freaking movie? Super Troopers. Like he would just like
try and
see if you can
insert
say me
words
out
into-
into like this. That's it. He just had fun with it. He never and he taught well.
I
like,
think I may have done that with him once on an exchange. Because I remember that very clearly.
It was fun. We Matthew Allred got transferred in at the same time Hancock did, and so they were over in Freeport. We were in Leechburg, and we hang out on P days and stuff like that. At some point, I think it was Matthew and Hancock's idea to have what we started calling match fights, where we go to the store and buy a 250 count box of matches, just strike matches. They had a 2-floor apartment in Freeport, and so like the bottom floor top. We'd go down to the bottom floor of this thing. We'd set couches on either side of the room as barricades, and if you light a match, there's like a flare moment where you have probably a good 3 seconds of a pretty hot thing. If that contacts your skin, it sears right to it, and it burns, and it's awful. And we just light a match and throw it show, and half an hour, the whole 250 count box was gone, and just little sticks everywhere, and a little bit of smoke in the air, like.
In Jamestown, I told you we were real close to the other missionaries.
Yeah.
Their apartment. So we spent most of the time that we weren't out supposed to be working at their apartment. Like we do morning study there, and we do all this other stuff. Well, their apartment was set up in this kind of strange configuration. You walked in the door, and there was a living room about the same size as this room. The front door was over here, and then there was the divide. There was a kitchen on the one side, and this little area that went around and up the stairs. So there was this medium narrow section of wall. They had a set of golf clubs. So we started out that 6 weeks playing the game, and I don't remember what we called it, but one person would stand by the door with the golf club, a golf ball, wiffle ball, and the other would stand against the wall, and you got 2 pillows, 2 couch pillows like this size. You could cover your face and you could cover your junk, and we'd drive golf balls at each other. By the end of that 6 weeks, you got one hand, and you had to choose which one you were going to cover. And I'd never golfed before in my life. I couldn't hit for anything. It was terrible. The ceiling would disagree, though, because there were holes in the ceiling from our backswing. But, man, Linford could. And he drove one and nailed me right in the nipple. And, you think a wiffle ball, right? That doesn't hurt. That's nothing. It's super light plastic ball. At that distance, it stings, man. It stings bad.
I remember this one morning, Hancock, I don't know. I don't think he was into physical fitness. I just think he didn't want to go home, fat. He just wanted to, stay in shape.
Yeah.
And he had a set of those, push-up things, where they're just, individual handles, and they just kind of, And he would just, crank these push-ups, 50 at a time. And I'm just laying on my bed at one point reading, I think I was reading a book about NSYNC. I don't even know where I got it. But I was reading a book about NSYNC, and he's just cranking these push-ups, and one or both of the bars breaks.
Oh.
And he's just flat on the ground, just hits the ground. And it was great. I would get the best laughs from him. I remember this one time, I just didn't know where he was. It'd been a while since I'd seen him, and I was just like, dude! And he was like, yeah! And he was coming from the bathroom, down the hall and around the corner. I'm like, what are you doing? And I look, I'm laying in my bed, and I look around so I can see down the hallway, and you can see the door of the bathroom. And, the bathroom door, if you're looking at it, you can see the shower is essentially that, and then what you can't see behind the wall would be where the toilet is, and then the sink's opposite it against the wall. And I'm expecting, him to tilt, standing up and look at me and say something, and his head pokes out, he's on his hands and knees. His head pokes out from a really strange position, and he's like, I'm naring my bummy hole, dude. What's up? and that started the conversation of, I know what nair is, and I know what a bummy hole is. What are you doing? He just constantly was full of weirdness. This one time we got home, it was like 9:30. The phone rings, I pick it up, it's all red. He's just taking our numbers and stuff. And I'm sitting in a chair, and there's like a door from the kitchen dining room area here that feeds into this room, and then another door that goes off in the bedroom. And I'm just like talking to all red, and my peripheral picks up the dude standing right there. And I turn around, and like, he's wearing a shirt, he's wearing his tie, like it's loose, what have you. No pants, no bottoms. Just
So he's 100%
all dude hanging out there, just standing there like nothing's wrong. And I'm just like, yeah, no, that's par for the course. That's what the dude would do. It was 6 weeks of that, just madness. And it wasn't like, I don't consider Hancock a disobedient missionary. I just think he played by his own rules. He had things he cared about, and he wasn't going to let anything else like deter him from that. And I think that's why. You know, he probably got a reputation for being disobedient. I don't think it's disobedience. I think he cared about what he's doing. I think he came out for good reasons. And he just also had his own agenda. Wasn't going to let anything make him different. Which I guess arguably is what missionary service is supposed to do. I think it's supposed to put you in a sphere, in a place where you aren't going to not change.
Yeah.
So I'm headed to do some laundry this morning, and as the irony of fate would have it, today is Wednesday, and I didn't remember until I was just getting ready to head out this morning that Wednesday was our preparation day as missionaries. So this whole re-experiencing the mission thing and filming it just got real, because I'm preparing for essentially the rest of my week on the same day that I would have been doing as a missionary. So how about that? And I'm going to do it at a coin laundromat, which is exactly what I would have been doing as a missionary. Good times. This is it right here. Filling up a washer while Kelly Ripa's interviewing Spike Lee. I don't know what else you're trying to get out of life, but this is pretty much all there is. Make it easy for me, Tide. Make me shred this box. Normal, cold, getting us some money.
But in a lot of that.
There's that car wash we used to go to right there. For being such a huge building that you're about to see, it's pretty well buried behind this hill and behind all these trees.
The destination is on your right.
Just
5900
kind of
Babcock
jumps out
Boulevard.
at you.
Arrived.
When we talked to the MTC about kind of the hierarchy of missionaries and senior companions and stuff, in my first area, I was a trainee, so the obvious junior companion. And then when Elder Hancock showed up, I was junior companion to him. And then I got transferred here, and I was made senior companion. My companion at the time was a guy from Clay Springs, Arizona, Elder Smith. This really quiet, really sweet, humble missionary. We were together, I think, 6 weeks, and then Frank Sanders, Utah, transferred here. Really funny guy, really sharp comedic senses. Loved to quote The Simpsons and just other pop culture stuff, which was super fun, but could be a little hard in teaching situations. And then he got transferred out, and I got Elder Lanier, also from Utah, one of my favorite companions. Just kind of skinny, scrawny kid from Utah. Really, really nerdy, but also quiet, so you have to really get to know him to understand the heights of his nerddom. But, frankly, probably one of the best missionaries I ever worked with. We were actually teaching a lady. I doubt I could even find the complex that she lived in at this point, but she lived in one of those high rises for older people or retired people, that sort of thing. And we were teaching her, and the teaching process had its bumps and what have you. But I remember there was one time we were in a meeting with the ward mission leaders, so the local congregation's appointed leader over the missionary effort as far as what we were doing. And he was asking us how Shirley was going, and I was like, she's fine, everything's fine. And I remember him looking at me, just kind of a suspect look, and I remember him looking over me to Elder Lanier, and he's like, Elder Lanier, how is Shirley doing? I remember Elder Lanier just looked up at him and said, she's not progressing, we need to drop her. And Brother Witzel, the ward mission leader, said, okay, well, we'll do that then. And I remember at the time I was so mad at Elder Lanier because, as a missionary, you teach people and you grow to love them very much. And we become very close with Shirley and with her friend Jean, and the other lady whose name I'm not going to remember. And frankly, there wasn't really much going on in the area at the time, teaching-wise, so Shirley was kind of all we had, really. But in the years since that happened, and really it didn't take that long. I mean, in the weeks following that happening, I knew that Elder Lanier was right, and it taught me a lesson in, not getting so hung up on the short time, arguably, that we have here as missionaries, the 2 years, and how much we want to accomplish as far as bringing people to Christ, bringing people to God, and just to get really more focused on using the time that we have as best as we can, as far as just meeting people, loving people, serving people, and those that will see and follow the path to Christ will, and those that won't can and should still be our friends and our neighbors and people that touch our lives just like we touch theirs. And part of the reason I came back here to Pennsylvania is to just come and spend some time with people that I love, because they're people that I had the privilege to live around during this time, and to projects with them, see them in church and worship with them, and sit in their homes and teach them, and to sit in their homes and be taught by them, to hear their testimonies, to hear their witnesses of Christ, and their passion for all of this. So it's kind of a trip to be back here. I actually remember, I think this was the first area that I discovered what a cicada is. It's kind of a praying mantis sort of thing that I think like once a year, or maybe, I don't remember what the time frame is, but they shed their skin. And so there's this little, crispy skin thing that's like a fully formed praying mantis, because they can just crawl out of it like that. And they're just all over the place during whatever season that is. So this was the area that I discovered that too. Good place. A lot of important things in my life happened in this area, so it's fun to be back here.
One day, sister missionaries found a dead possum on the road, and they put it in their trunk.
As you do.
And they brought it over to our house and laid it on our doorstep.
Oh, that's right. You guys did get in like this prank mode that got real bad.
And so I was like, I knew it was them. You're not gonna fool me. Lindhoff was a little more worried, but they put it on there, and I'm like, oh, I got a good idea. We'll just, so we got rid of the possum. And at a meeting, a couple days later, I was like, oh man, yeah, this guy's been stalking our house. They got the license plate of the car. The neighbors saw him, and they said they put dead animals on our things because they hate the church. And so the cops are being in contact, and the cops authority. And so then you could see the panic on Stratton and Sister Stratton and Sister Farnes' face, and they're like looking around like, oh my gosh, like what do we do? So they had to come clean to they went and told President Cameron, and Cameron's like, what are you talking about? And he had no idea, because it's just a spun story, and then they went and got like little octopuses from some store, like seafood, and hung them in our shower. And, it was like.
Oh, that's right. You could get into each other's apartments. There was some junk that was going down there.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was a pretty fun little thing.
They tell us about what West Virginians are like, and I learned that that's the only state where it's legal to eat your roadkill and weird things. And
which P.S.
I don't actually know if that's true. I should say that as a caveat.
I think it was Losser that told me that you and Barnes. I'm gonna let you tell it. I love how you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm just like, what? As he's telling me this story, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so from what I recall.
Stop it. You remember this vividly.
So I feel like missionaries should have fun as well. We were driving on the way to, Sister Farnes and I were driving on the way to an appointment, and it was somebody that the elders had given us because we had to drive right by their house.
Yeah.
Which was, I don't know, it was kind of a rundown. They lived down in the basement, and there was this big property. So we were driving up this long road that they lived on, and there's some roadkill, this dead possum, and I was like, oh, Sister Farnes, we have to go take that possum and put it on the elder's front porch.
Oh, it was your idea.
She's like, okay, on the way back from the appointment. So we went and did our appointment, and on the way back, we went and got the roadkill. And I don't even remember what we put it in. But let me just tell you, a dead possum is really rank, really, really smelly. We're like, gagging as we're taking it. So we went and we put it on the elder's porch. And I want to say we got into their house and we got some ketchup and squirted it on just to make it a little bit more legit. And we didn't hear anything for, I don't think it was that night. Either that or they called us and we're like, no. And the story of what happened didn't come out till later. And they didn't know it was us at first. And they had some really creepy appointment. And this guy got super mad at them and like threatened them somehow. And then they come home. And they have this roadkill on their porch. And Elder Losser, when he found out it was us, he was so mad. He was like, dude, I slept with a knife under my pillow for a week! Because he thought that we were the creepy guy that had tried to kill him.
I officially can't wait for you to hear Elder Losser's side of this story.
Why?
Because
is it a totally different story? That's what I remember.
it's the same story, but in his version, they knew it was you the minute that they saw it.
No, they did
And
not!
Lost decided he was going to own you by creating this whole story about this thing. And he said, the way he said it was, he was just like, they were telling you guys this story, like maybe a week later, like some time had passed, about all this creepy stalker guy and all this stuff. And they were like, your eyes were just getting all big. And like, you went, I think you went and told Cameron, who just wouldn't have known anything was going on. You're just like, this happened, we're so sorry we did it. Lawson was just like, owned him. Like, they can't have me.
Oh, okay, good. I feel better that he wasn't really freaked out.
He would say something like that though, like, you made me sleep with a knife in a pillow.
You know, one other challenge when we first arrived too is it was in the summer, and our neighborhood in Upper St. Clair was a wealthy neighborhood,
Yeah.
and people were off on vacation, children were at summer camps or wherever they went, and it took us a long time to get a sense of the community.
Oh,
but
yeah.
when Julie started playing sports, that was a way to tune into the community, and that was really helpful for me. I got to know people in the community through her sports and through some of the things that Sarah did too, and so it was an interesting thing because we were the Mormons, and you know, people kind of kept their distance for a while.
Yeah.
So.
And I wonder if some of that might have had to do with, you know, previous. Because how long was that mission home in the? Do we know?
Yes, the mission home had been there. It was built, and then the mission president moved in, and it had been there for over 24 years.
Wow.
And interestingly enough, the church had always had such a good eye for real estate. It was a lovely home, but really quite modest for the neighborhood. Then as other people bought tracts, these very large homes went up. And we were so interested in finding out, we had a hard time meeting our neighbors, and so finally Sister Cameron baked brownies, and we went around to meet them. And we went to this one house, and when the woman opened the door, she started crying. And she said, I became so close to the last two.
To the Coonies.
To the Coonies and the people just before them. And she said, I decided I couldn't break my heart again, so I wasn't even going to meet you. And then because of that, she did, and she became a lovely and gracious friend. But you don't think about that. How
coming and going.
And how people form really close attachments, and then there's a new person on the block.
All right, today we are on our way to my third area. So at this point, I had been on my mission about a year, and I got shipped from the North Hills of Pittsburgh down to Beechview, Pennsylvania. It's a small area just south of the city, south of Pittsburgh. Where we lived as missionaries was kind of the lower income part of town. So part of what I'll get to show you is that as beautiful as of a place as Pennsylvania is, just like any city, there are parts of it that are a little run down, undermanaged, and just a place where a very humble status of human being lives. So we're gonna look around there a little bit. We'll probably get into downtown a bit because it's close enough to downtown. I want to take you up in there and show you the beautiful city of Pittsburgh. And we'll just bomb around a bit. We'll see what we can find, maybe what I can remember about the place.
The destination is on your left. 1703 Broadway Avenue. Arrived.
If memory serves me right, I got transferred down here sometime in the fall of 2002. So it wasn't too dissimilar to the way it is now. Really cold and wet. I feel like we got brought down here, me and my companion, Elder Coombs, by a zone leader or somebody who had a car. But once we got down here, I got given my trolley pass, and that was it. It was me and Coombs on foot or taking the trolley to, whatever part of this area we might need to go to. And up ahead was our apartment. That front door right there, and that window is ours. The apartment was the first floor, and then down in the basement, it was like a washer and dryer. I think it might have serviced several units, but it was where we lived. I remember I slept next to this window. Look out it over here at the car repair place across the street, and it's kind of a decent view that way of just kind of some suburban landscape, I guess, neighborhoods and what have you, both directions. But it was a really cold place to be, and ironically I went through a lot in this area. I dealt with a lot of stress and worked real hard, and not sure I ever really saw much from that work, although I'm sure all work that missionaries do does something, has some level of influence. But even if not, maybe the work's just for the missionary. Maybe it's just them on the bench press of life, just getting stronger and braver and more sure of themselves. I was in Beechview at the time, and me and Coombs were doing service at the hospital.
I love Beechview.
So
Was Calvin still at the hospital?
Yeah, yes.
I love Calvin.
He talked about you.
Did he?
Yeah.
I love
He was like,
Calvin.
send that guy back. I'm like, nope. That ain't how that works.
Calvin was sweet, man. I'd see him and You know, just different kind.
Like the classiest concierge.
He took his job very seriously.
Very seriously.
That's the kind of stuff that I really loved, is like doing that service stuff. And like,
Yeah.
he was a Mormon, but I'd talk about like stuff with him all the time about different things.
Yeah.
That was the stuff I really liked, other than the tracting and the. I guess he's working on stuff. Hopefully you can hear me.
We'll probably get through it.
Trainer and me were in.
Because I'm thinking I'm only a couple months behind you because I hit the
I love
MCC
that
October
area.
24th.
That area was sweetest, man. You know,
These two? Yeah.
Nate and Dave.
I was just thinking about them and I can't. Yeah.
I talked to Nate, texted Nate a couple times. You know,
Really?
we send messages back and forth. And,
Yeah. Because when I was there, he was.
I was trying to talk Dave and going on a mission for him.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. He was at like the age, and we were just like, put it in the papers. He was like, there was like a lot of family
Funny
stuff
story.
going on. He's like, I don't know.
Their mom would call me when Nate would be acting up. And I would walk up the street and yell at him, and this guy was like 4 times my size, man. For some reason, he was scared of me. Like, we used to play basketball, and I was pretty aggressive, you know, on basketball court. They called me white eyes and stuff like that on the basketball court, but, you know, I figured it was a good way to get in because these guys, you know, it's a little rough area.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like,
You're from South Salt Lake, though, fool. You bring that.
well, I got some Nordic and Irish anger in me, so I'm like, yeah, I can handle this. And, you know, I'm not like the normal Mormon. Yeah, you can tell I'm not like the normal people that came from South Salt Lake. There's a little anger, and but yeah, so like his mom would call me, and I'd go like, "You listen to your mom."
Yeah.
But I love that family. They're good people.
Yeah.
They struggled, and you know,
Yeah, they
like
did.
in that area, they was either rich or poor, and they're on the poor end.
Yeah.
You know, it was, you know, I always felt bad for people like that. You know,
That's one of the weird things about being a missionary is you move into an area and you meet people and you realize that you're getting like injected into a relationship that they've had with missionaries for a long time.
Yeah.
And so you end up being a chapter of that relationship. Yeah, you just love them. Like coming home from a mission is the worst because part of it's just like, why? So I can go live my own life now? Well, that's bullcrap because I know how they're waking up and going to sleep every day. Like I know that their life's going to keep being that way, and I'm going to go back and take, you know, beautiful pictures with my fiance at our wedding. Like I'm just going to live this happy life.
you
Is
start
that still
forgetting,
going on? Like,
you know, then you start forgetting some of that stuff. Like, you know, I think all the time, and I drive for UPS, and I'm good with directions. I'm like, how do you even get around on those streets? Do you think I'd even remember where people lived or how, like, you know, like it's a sad feeling.
I did the Google Map thing where you can do the street view to like find
I've done a couple
my apartments,
Yeah.
and like viscerally felt I'm gonna be standing there in just a few weeks, and yeah, I'm a little nervous to be standing like in front of the Beachview apartment, looking through the window and being like, should I break in? What should I do
used to
here?
sit on that thing and like read and stuff.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny is I actually watched. She was a member, and her dad drank there all the time. She was an older single lady, and she was a member, but her parents were still alive, and her dad was an alcoholic. He'd drink there all the time, and he'd go home and he'd wet himself because he drank so much. He was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So I watched him one night. 2 guys came to rob him with a knife. He shot one of them. The other one ran off. The cops came and let him go. And I was like studying my scriptures outside. You know what I'm saying? The little bar. It was the little bars.
Yeah.
The bar next to only Pennsylvania. Can you have a bar and a church right next to every other thing? It's a different church. You know?
Oh jeez. How long were you trapped?
6 weeks.
Oh, and then Smart was there for 6 weeks. Okay. Wow. How did you? I mean, on the outside, it looked like you two got along in the sense that you two are both very strong individuals, and neither were interested in like out spotlighting the other. Like you just occupied your own spaces and were fine with that. Like, is that accurate, or was there?
Treff and I?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got along great, and I don't think we butted heads at all. In fact, he was one of the companions that I look back on positively. I think Ryan's great. He was one of my favorites, even though it was such a short time.
Yeah. So, I mean, since, your third companionship and when I showed up also led into my hardest companion, and none of this is to, denigrate anybody. It's all just sharing our memories and sharing our thoughts at the time, because the whole point of this is to try to tell the story of my mission, but try to talk to other people and just try to tell the story of being a missionary.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess humanize it a bit, because, when you see these guys in white shirts and ties and smiles, it looks so conformist that you just start thinking that there's not a human there. There's just a guy who's playing a part.
Well, that's certainly what you think before you're one of them.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You have that image of missionaries in your mind as you're a young man coming up in the church.
Mm-hmm. And you want to be that in a weird way. You kind of don't even know what it is.
Yeah,
It's such a mysterious thing.
You definitely put
that
them
you're
up on a
like,
pedestal.
imagine me a missionary. Like, it's, ugh.
Especially if you've had some interaction with one that you liked.
Yes.
At some point.
Those are powerful ones, yeah. So, anyway, I get transferred into Beachview. You're in Brookline with Trav, and I meet Kent Coombs for the first time. How did were you? So he was there with you before I got there. I don't know, who was his last companion? Who did I replace? Do you remember?
Yes, I can see his face.
I feel like he sent him home, like honorably. I feel like he.
Elder Jensen, tall guy, real tall guy.
Heard of him? I don't
Dark
think
hair.
I knew him. Okay.
He was the nicest, funniest human being ever. He was great.
How did that go?
With Coombs?
Yeah. I've always wondered if there's somebody that's just like nice enough and standoffish enough that he just never got triggered, so he was just
Oh
never...
no, he definitely got triggered. Constantly. Because Coombs was Coombs. I mean...
Yeah.
And Jensen handled it very well, but you knew on P-Day that he was so grateful, because we'd go over there and do our laundry.
Yeah.
At that place across the street.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just see, like, when we would show up 9:30 or whatever in the morning, like, a certain amount of tension just leave his body. As if the stress that was Coombs was being spread around.
Yes! That's exactly what that feeling is. Someday, after the resurrection and once our chemical imbalances are all corrected, I would like to understand from him what it looked like sitting in his brain, like behind his eyes, observing life through the lens of his behavior and how other people reacted to it.
I honestly think, well, clearly there was some mental illness. He was depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And probably some other things going on, which I personally totally understand.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the way he would talk and interact with people? It was kind of like he was on a sitcom.
I do remember he was constantly trying to be jokey, which in an atmosphere where missionaries are essentially always trying to create a reverent atmosphere where we can bring in the Spirit or invite the Spirit and we can teach, it was miserable with him, like trying to create that, because he was just always trying to break it up and basically trying to draw attention to himself. Like he told I was the homecoming king story constantly as if that was like social currency.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, dude, these people have no idea who you are and may not have enjoyed their high school experience. Like, you being the homecoming king may not mean anything to them.
Yeah, that was the impression that I got from him. It always felt like he was trying to set up a joke on a sitcom.
Yeah.
Like the way he was talking to me, the way he would just phrase his sentences.
And I feel like the weird part is...
He was always doing this.
He was like such a Chris Farley, like, kind of wannabe, kind of knockoff.
Kind of like that.
But it's like in public, if his jokes fell flat, he would be the only one laughing at him and everybody just roll their eyes and whatever. In private, if his jokes fell flat, it would trigger him into just like fits of rage and all sorts of crazy things that was just so bizarre.
Like when he threw that chair at me. We had not gotten into an argument, but had a disagreement about something. And I was still, at that point, very calm and measured, and like, just didn't let stuff get to me. but we disagreed about something, and it made him mad. So Thompson and I left. It was towards the end of the day. He picked up a chair and threw it at the door as we were walking out.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Do you remember even what we did on P-Days? Like, I feel like I was just so stressed about it that I don't remember activities. Like, did we play basketball? Did we take trips into the city? Like, I know we hung out, but I don't know what we did. I can't remember fun times.
We went into the city a couple times. We went down to that little area across from Washington Incline.
Okay.
And we went to the Hard Rock Cafe for my birthday. I got permission from President Cameron to do that.
You want to enjoy a Permane Brothers sandwich with me? It's good living. Look at it. Look at that monster. Oh my goodness. Do it. The whole thing like that. You can't see from there. Pastrami, corned beef, French fries, coleslaw, tomatoes, sandwiches. Go get it. And if you want to have fun, hot dogs. Yeah, man. Don't you hold back on me. What you doing? So good. So good. So Pittsburgh, you know? If you don't. Maybe some of you do. So Pittsburgh.
How is it?
There's nothing going wrong here. This is perfect.
Very good.
Some of you viewers that are wiser to Pittsburgh might be asking, but Adam, you're only holding half of that sandwich. Well, that's because I didn't want to torture you by putting you through the entire sandwich. I already ate the first half. It was delicious. I figured I'd bring you in on the second half. So we can just make this short and sweet. I think the thing is, who knows how your digestive tract is going to handle this? I mean, there's a lot of different flavors, there's a lot of different elements in here that have to be broken down by your system. I mean, this is worth a little toilet time, don't you think? I sure do. The funny thing is, I came in here this morning, or I came in here this afternoon, having not eaten too much this morning. Continental breakfast at my hotel is garbage, so I had a muffin and, I don't know, maybe half a glass of cranberry juice. So I came in here like ready to just devour this thing. I am not even all the way through the sandwich. I have basically the second half of the sandwich to go. I'm already full. See? You know what I mean? Like the body's already like, put the brakes on, pal. I'm like, brakes? Who are you talking to? But we're in downtown Pittsburgh right now. At the Market Square location of Remaining Brothers. It's a beautiful day. It's like there are flurries of snow in the air. It's a brisk, like 28 degrees. There are people out on the streets. I've already given money to a homeless man. Probably wasn't homeless, he was just trying to get home. But anyway, it's a good time in the city today. So, today we go to probably the smallest place that I may have ever even been in my life, but definitely the smallest place that I ever served in on my mission. And by saying that, I don't mean that the area that we covered was small. It was actually giant. We spent a lot of time in our car driving, 20, 30 miles a day, probably. I mean, that sounds like a lot, but in missionary terms, and considering we had to account for all that mileage, it was a lot. But we're going to Kane, Pennsylvania. It's a small town in the northeastern portion of what was my mission at the time, the Pennsylvania-Pittsburgh mission. But in reality is, in kind of the northern central portion of the state of Pennsylvania. In driving up to Kane, I was leaving Beachview. I was leaving the elder that I trained, Elder Salo, and got put with Elder Sam Haraldson. Sam was this short, stocky guy from Idaho, from like farm town Idaho. Just a really happy-go-lucky, cheerful, wonderful human being. And so much as I'm doing right now, he and I on the drive up to Kane
we're just talking about our missions. He had, if I remember right, he had 3 months left on his mission. Either that or 6 weeks. He was really close to the end. And I was a little over a year out at that point, probably pretty close to a year and a half. So I guess we were both kind of weathered missionaries, and so we were just talking about our mission experiences up to that point on the way up, and we made a decision. Me and Haroldson, because we'd both been out so long, we were actually made co-senior companions, so there wasn't really any hierarchy in our area or in, you know, whose vote, I guess, matters the most or is the strongest. So as he and I are driving up to Kane, we're just talking about, you know, what we've been through up to that point, you know, what we've seen succeed, the things that we feel like we've seen fail. And we made a deal that when we get up to Kane, we're just gonna explore, and we're gonna figure the area out. We're gonna try to figure out what is unique about that area, and we're just gonna relax. We're just gonna be two guys. Adam from, well, we didn't call ourselves by our first names, but we're just gonna be, you know, Blaylock from Arizona and Haroldson from Idaho, and we're just gonna try to tone down, I guess, we're gonna try to tone down any aspect of being a missionary that might seem unapproachable, especially since we're going to a small town, and for the most part, what gets hard about being a missionary in a small town is, because at least when I went 15 years ago, there was a lot of door knocking going on. Generally speaking, that place has probably been, we call it tracting, where we go around and knock the doors. That place has been tracted, I don't know, dozens of times. And they know who the missionaries are, and most of them at this point are probably used to just not even coming to the door. So, we, acknowledging that, we just thought, we gotta try something different. So, what ended up happening is we got up there, and we drove around a bit, and we walked around the town a bit, and it's kind of a quiet, sleepy little place. And we thought, well, let's see if we can find the youth here. So let's see where they're at. And so we ended up going, not every day, but maybe like twice a week, 2 or 3 times a week, down to the rec center, usually like in the afternoon or maybe sometimes in the morning, and we would just play ping pong, me and Haroldson. We'd just set up on the ping pong table, and we'd just be talking to each other and just cranking the ball back and forth and laughing and having a great time. And usually there was kind of a smattering of young people all along the walls, you know, playing portable video games, or, you know, just talking to each other, or, I don't know, maybe playing basketball or something like that. And they'd kind of side-eye us, like they knew that we were there, and they knew that we weren't trying to come to talk to them, but they were also probably a little weirded out, because usually missionaries do want to come up and talk to them. And then at some point around that same time, Haroldson and I would go out at night. As a missionary, you've got to be home by 9:30. So we would go out, I don't know, probably like 7 or 8 o'clock, down to the main drag. There was this main street, I forget the name of it was, maybe we'll shoot that when I get up there. We'd go out on the main street, and we just walk up and down, and we just kind of talk to anybody that's there. And there was a lot of kids there hanging out and doing their thing. So between, you know, us just trying to be normal and not leading every conversation with, hey, have you heard of Jesus? But just talking to people, getting to know them, and the fact that we go down to the rec center and hang out, and some of the youth noticed that, we ended up getting in pretty tight with the kids of Kane, and having a good time in this area. Welcome to Kane,
Continue
Pennsylvania.
onto North Frehley Street, then turn right onto Haines Street.
The tiniest town in America that has my heart.
In a quarter mile, the destination is on your right, 216 Haines Street. The destination is on your right, 216 Haines Street.
216 Haines Street, Pennsylvania. I didn't even think about it until just a minute ago, but it was about this time of year that me and Haroldson got transferred up here. That doorway kind of leads up a little hallway, and then basically that whole top floor is where we live. Like a bedroom next to those two windows, and that one window just is a window for the hallway. I remember when we got here, we were what's called whitewashed into the area, which means the area hadn't had missionaries for a while. And the last missionaries that were here were sister missionaries. And when they got transferred out of the area together, they wanted to try to make things hospitable for the next set of missionaries. So they baked an apple pie, and they left it on the dining room table. And Haroldson and I got here about 3 months after that happened. So there was a impressive stack of mold on that pie. But other than that, beautiful apartment. Probably one of the more comfortable apartments I think I've had during this time. And out of that door, we would walk up this street to a downtown area, and since it was like this when we got here, just really snowy and bitter cold. We also drove a lot. This is Kane. Such an awesome place.
I don't want to make any excuses for why what happened, why I am what I am, but my grandma died, and I kind of knew that, you know, when I left, I said goodbye to her, but I lived right next to her my whole life, so that passed, and that kind of hit me, and then my house burnt down. You know, at that point, I was just floating. I was just wrecked, and, you know, like, I was getting close to the end of my mission. I'm just like, I just got to bide my time, you know, and at that point, you know, a friend that wasn't a good friend was writing me, you know, at times he'd send me porn.
Oh, wow.
Which was,
I mean, not that we would have talked about that, but
you know, which was
never knew that.
which was putting those old problems back in me.
Jeez.
And then I got into Meadville, and I loved the people there, but it was right off the start just thrown into chaos. And to an extent, I can sympathize what you walked into, because, you know, what I walked into was watching movies and playing computer games.
From day one, or did it like drift into this? So arguably, your companion had been doing that for a while.
Right home was just music, normal music, you know, like.
Oh, like from leaving Green Tree to like drive back up there, it was just like
just normal
got
music.
the CD, whatever.
And at that point, I was just close to the end,
Tired. I mean, the purpose of this isn't to put anybody down or to
no.
to
And that's why I don't want to mention names. I'll only mention.
But I kind of do. I mean, maybe not names, but I do want to talk about it in some degree of detail, because it's important to your story and thus to my story. Like, what exactly happened? Because I walked into something that had been going on for a while.
I was just sick of doing stuff, and, you know, with my friends sending me all that garbage. And, you know, like, at that point, I wasn't in the right state of mind to fight it. And that's my biggest regret, you know, is not shutting it down day one. You know, I just let it slide. And then we're like, oh, hey, let's show up to this place and we'll play some video games, whatever, you know. And there was times during that time where I knew, and I tried to get focused back on it, you know, like.
Just yourself, or did you talk to your companion?
Well, just myself.
Like, just you. Okay.
I knew there was no hope in that.
Really?
Yeah. And it made, like, the time frame.
Because it was 6 weeks with him, and then I showed up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't have the time, you know, like, it would have been horrible, and, you know, I didn't have the fight in me at that point. But during that time, I was still trying to put myself back on track, you know, and this is one of my other regrets, is I started teaching William the gospel, you know, because my companion took me to some karate class. You know, we were doing karate. We were doing It was all sorts of stuff. You know, it was all over the place, and I loved and I got along with the companion personally, but spiritually.
I don't think I know anybody that doesn't get along with him. Yeah.
Spiritually, it was damning for me.
Yeah.
But you know, while we were doing karate, I'm the one talking to him. I remember my companion watching an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and I was teaching William the gospel, and I was in no place necessary to be teaching him the gospel.
Yeah.
But I was still teaching him the gospel.
It just came out of you. It just
and you know,
part of you.
And it just shows that God, when it's that person's time, He's not going to let two bum-ass missionaries ruin that. You know what I'm saying?
That's so true.
Because, and I cared about William, and
I never knew that you started that.
And the family. You know what I'm saying? The whole family.
You and I, at least once, went out to that freaking house.
And it broke my heart. It shattered my heart.
I've never, besides like TV shows that are just trying to make things look awful, like I've never seen it like that.
Have you seen?
It's horrible.
Have you seen Shameless?
Yeah.
That is the movie.
Yes. Yeah, that's their whole family.
And I sat there and I thought about, like, I watched that show, and there was a time where I almost started crying on that show. And it wasn't because of the show, it was because of that family.
Yeah.
Like, how can somebody grow up normal in that kind of situation?
Yeah.
They can. You know?
And the weird thing is, exactly like that TV show, like, the lead character, Fiona, is trying to fix it. Like, there were people in that family that were trying to fix it, but the problem was bigger than all of them.
I couldn't get it to the end because I wasn't worthy enough at the time. But you did. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
and that's...
I can't take that because, frankly, I got emergency transferred out of the area like 3 weeks after you left.
Yeah.
And it was literally just to go talk to president and to get some processes started that I hated. Like, I didn't fix anything. If anything, the bishopric, all the members there were looking at me the same way they were looking at you.
Yeah.
There wasn't, I did
Which
not.
was even harder because they didn't have a chance to look at me. And here's what, I'm glad that they transferred you out of that area, because that area, well, the people in that area are good, but I found out some things and you know, the whole situation was planned.
How do you mean?
From when I first met those people. So
Wait a minute. Are you saying what happened was planned?
Yeah.
By who?
And that's why that night I came home and I asked to be transferred. Or I called up the thing and they got me out of the area. I got sent home, obviously, for doing things that I shouldn't have with a married woman.
Yeah.
Which, over time, you know, with us hanging out there and, you know, people watching movies and doing things, we begun a close relationship.
Yeah.
Where I fell in love with the person that I was doing that. So when I showed up, apparently there was another missionary that had the same issues, Elder Hopkins, with the same people.
Really?
Some things transpired. I broke rules. I'm getting sent home. But before I got sent home and I broke those rules, the person that I broke those rules with told me that her husband was going to be mad that he couldn't watch because they talked about it. He was like pretty mentally abusive, like all the time period to her, and she was very manipulative in some ways.
She was a very strong woman from what I gauged from her. She wasn't going to take any crap.
And not only that, but she was very, you know, she's a beautiful person, you know, in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And, you know, inside, you know, like a personality.
No, totally.
And you know, at that time, I don't even know where my mind was. I have blurs and things where I can't even like remember what happened or things that went because it was so devastating. You know, I came home and, you know, my dad's bawling and I've never seen him cry in my life, you know, and it wasn't because he was angry, it was because he was sad and broken.
Yeah.
You know, people acting like my mission was garbage because some bad ending to it. You know, 2 months before I'm supposed to go home, this happens.
Yeah.
And, you know, it didn't get my life started off right after I came home.
Yeah.
I came home to a political stake and a political war that was just drumming up to punish me and to, you know, kick me out. Because my dad's a mayor, and not only is he mayor, he's a pretty straightforward mayor. You know, he came from a construction trade, so you know he pissed a lot of people off. You know, fired a lot of crooked people, and it's a pretty close knit little area. You know, I feel like I let not only William down, but like you down, and I felt like we could have been a great team. You know, and did a lot of things. I felt like I let President Cameron down. I much rather would have got kicked off a mission by President Cameron than Crump. And Crump kind of told me, he's like, I felt like I should have moved you out of that area. And I'm like, oh, that's so great, man. You know, hearing that, it's like,
that hurts.
It's like a day away from that. You know? Like, I felt like you and me could have done so much good in that area if I could have got my shit together. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, with our personalities and our overbearing personalities and our go-to attitude and our casual, funny little jabs and and the weird little quirks that we have, I felt like we could have touched the people that couldn't even been touched in that area.
For 15 years, I've had a story inside of me that no one really knows. Because even me coming home, like, yes, I came home honorably, but not really. Because that went around the mission so hard. To the point that, like, I got put with the assistants at one point because they were just trying to figure out where to put me, and so we were traveling around a lot. We went to the area where the kid that I trained was currently at with his companion, and we show up, and he and I are about to go on exchanges, and he looks at me with like this grin, like this pleased grin, and says to me in essence, "How much fun was that party area, man?" And I died. I died because I'd spent like 6 weeks with this kid as his trainer in Beachview, just tracking. It was deep in the winter. It was like 14 degrees outside. Like I was just doing everything I could to show this kid that working hard is important. And we had a good companionship, I thought. And then 6 months later or something, like to have that come back and taint his perception of his trainer, where for the rest of his life he's going to be like, I mean, my trainer, he was good when he was around me, but come to find out, and I'm like, damn.
Well, just personally, I'm fine with destroying my own name. I've always been fine with like causing problems on myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can.
You feel like you
if
can.
I bring him, I can handle that.
Yeah.
But like, if I bring problems on other people, it just wrecks me because I'm not that person. Like I don't, and
it shows in your missionary service. You go to the weak and the downhearted, and you lift them up. That's who you are.
I pride myself on trying to, like, help people. And not saying that I haven't affected people, but I didn't do it because I was evil, or I didn't do it because I had a bad heart. I did it because I struggled with personal struggles, and I didn't want to bring people down onto that level. I was powerful enough to shut that down. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've never been weak.
Yeah.
Like, if I wanted to do something, I could have always done it. If I wanted to be something, I could have always been that person.
Yeah.
And that was what was so hard, is that I let it, and it wasn't just right off the bat. It wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna go mess up my life.
Yeah.
Let's go do it. Like, it was little by little. It even made me mad that your trainer said that how awesome was that party area, because it wasn't supposed to be that, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you go in there, you don't go in there doing that stuff. And I don't even go in there to party. I'm looking to freaking get my rocks off or do all that stuff. If I wanted to do that, I would have stayed home.
Yeah.
My parents gave me a choice on to go out there or not.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a forced choice. We're actually Mormons in this family where we fought for a choice, and I was raised with that choice. My whole entire life, I was raised with that choice. So when I heard that, it made me angry. Like, like, you guys don't even understand the mind games and the things that I was going through at that point. And I was just too weak. And not only was I too weak, but I didn't call for help from my Savior or my companion, or my mission president.
Yeah.
I should have said to myself, this isn't happening. And then I should have went to my companion and said, this isn't happening. And then I should have went to my mission president and said, this isn't happening. If one of those other two didn't work. I didn't, because I was weak, and there's a lot of things going on.
Well, every journey has a destination. Every trip has an end. Today is that end. This is the day we say goodbye to the Burgh. But not before we go to my last area that I served in as a missionary, which is Plum. I was thinking up to, the minute I got on the plane to come out here that we weren't actually going to get to tackle this particular area because I was there for such a short period of time, and with just some of the stuff that happened in Meadville, like, I wasn't even really writing home, or I think I was, and it was through emails, so there just wasn't any address, and I just didn't have any record of where I was in Plum. And then I sat down with Jake Golightly, who had also served in Plum, and he had some stuff in his mission box and had the address. So we get to go see the Plum apartment because Jake Golightly is a stallion. That being the case, I wasn't there that long. I was only there for 6 weeks, and I guess I don't have very many memories of Plum, partly because it was the one area that I got transferred to that I just didn't really attach any revelation to. I didn't think that my mission president had been inspired to send me to Plum. I just felt dumped there. And I felt like I got sent there because the missionary that was serving there, Elder Sensina, he's from Mongolia, just a really hardworking kid and a really good kid. I think President Crump, my second mission president, was just trying to keep me out of trouble and in a space where I could just work hard for my last 6 weeks and then get the hell out of Pennsylvania. I might be wrong about that, and I'm open for that just being the message that my ego wants to feed to me. That being the case, we're gonna go to the Plum apartment and we'll talk a little bit about how this all wrapped up for me. But all in all, this is the end. This is goodbye. This is where the whole 2-year journey wrapped up for me. Well, I'm kind of going off of memory here because the address I got from Jake doesn't have the same number as here, but my memory is that this is where the building, anyway, where Sensa and I used to live. We're just going to hang out here because I really don't know if missionaries still live there, and I don't know, I'd hate to get out and set up a camera and cause a scene, but anyway, I knew of Elder Sensina from earlier in my mission. President Cameron, my first mission president, was... I mean, he was a very validating, praising man as it was. But with Elder Sensina, he got called to America, to Pennsylvania from Mongolia. And so English was a very second language from him in that, as far as I understand, he didn't know any English before he even got to the MTC. Elder Sensina had achieved an award. He'd memorized, all 6 missionary discussions, and as an incentive for that, we as missionaries were given, these kind of these printed out awards, and just recognized for the dedication and us actually learning those discussions. President actually held back giving him that last award until we could meet as a mission so that he could do it publicly. And he talked a lot about his love for Elder Sensina, and specifically how we as missionaries, those of us who, because a lot of missionaries in Pennsylvania were from other parts of the U.S., so English was our first language, so most of what we were learning as missionaries was just how to feel the Spirit of God, how to teach by the Spirit of God, that sort of thing. So he made a big deal out of the fact that this was not a small thing, that Elder Sensina had been working to learn the language, and in the midst of that had learned, all of these pretty in-depth discussions by heart. So anyway, when I got with Elder Sensina, outside of that and just a few, stories that were floating around the mission, just missionaries that had served with him and stuff, I really didn't know him that well. And initially, we just kind of hit the ground running into very regular missionary routine. We'd get up in the morning and we'd have our study time, and we'd eat and we'd go out. And as I remember, he was the senior companion, so really it was just a situation where I just kind of had to follow him in whatever we were doing, tracting or any member visits or discussions that he already had set up. But over time, Elder Sensina and I started to, try to get to know each other and what have you. One of my fondest memories of him was that because I was kind of bummed out by everything that had happened, there would be some times where we'd be driving around or whatever, and I'd just kind of zone out, looking out the window or whatever. And he would usually catch me doing that. He would just say to me, "Are you fine?" And then when I looked at him, whether I responded or not, he'd just kind of look at me and be like, "You look fine. You should be fine." And he'd just keep doing whatever else he was doing. And I actually say that to people from time to time just because it makes me giggle. Old Sensina. His name was Gankuyag Sensina, and if I remember correctly, on your missionary tag, it starts with Elder, which is your office, and then it ends with your last name, which in my case was Blaylock. In Mongolia, the way things work out as far as your name goes is your first name, so Gankuyag, was actually his surname, was his father's name, and Sensina was, his first name, was his given name. So ironically, it would be as if my name tag said Elder Adam, like his said Elder Sensina, and Sensina was his name. But the closer we got to each other, the more, I was getting ready to go home, so we would talk sometimes about the fact that I was getting ready to go home, and just my relationship with family members before I left, and what I felt like that was going to be like coming home and such. And he opened up, which I think might have been culturally significant, because I'm not sure if that's really how that culture functions, is being emotionally open. But he opened up about the fact that, when he was growing up, his father was, really abusive and had some issues and things. And he said that while he was on his mission, his dad had joined the church and had cleaned his life up. And he talked to me about the fact that he felt like it was going to be hard for him to go home and to, rejoice with his father in this big life change, and to basically let him, be a new human being, because in his mind, in his heart, his dad was just an abusive jerk. So, we ended up connecting in that way, and basically, as rough as my life and mission was up to this point, I feel like Elder Sensina really helped me land my mission in a way that felt a little bit better. and felt I ended my mission feeling like a missionary again, instead of, a time just before that I was wearing a shirt and tie and wearing a name badge, but not really doing anything that missionaries do. So, all in all, a good area. I don't really have any memories of members or investigators or anybody that we were talking to, but I do remember Elder Sense, and I always will. And glad that the mission president entrusted him to give me a good experience, so that I could, be a missionary again before my mission was over.
Well, I had a similar conversation with Ramsell about that after I got home. In the 5 short months between when I got home and when he died.
Yeah.
And he said a lot of those same things, because I was pretty rough on myself.
Yeah.
I was cognizant of who I was and my level of devotion and effectiveness in the mission field, and I was really struggling with that. And he pointed out, you can't be that hard on yourself about it, because you were sick pretty much the whole time. You had something going on the whole time, so you can't blame yourself and think, man, I'm just worthless and blah blah blah. I didn't do anything positive on the mission,
Which is ironic, because, and maybe one of the only reasons that he could have that talk with you is because that's exactly how Paul was with himself. Mm-hmm. Really hard on himself. And I guess my own Ramsell story, I loved him. Like, when I was in North Hills, I think it was the first time I met him. He came to, fix the plumbing at one of the other elders' apartments, and so I met him there, and I started to get to know his personality and stuff. And then when I was in Beachview, because he went to that ward, we'd see each other every week, and one of my favorite memories of him conversationally was we were all just joking around about something, and somebody jokingly blamed me for something, and I was just like, I'm innocent, and he leaned into me, put his arm around me and leaned into me and said, basically just in my ear, as innocent as my dick. And it was that moment to me is Paul Ramsell. He's just that funny and awesome, but more personally, I guess, after all the Losser stuff, and then I went to Plum, and just kind of lived out, just sort of droned through the last 6 weeks of my mission. We got to the transfer meeting, and Crump had started doing that thing where he'd have all the missionaries that were going home stand up, and then they had everybody clap their hands. It was all based on the scripture in Alma about people clapping their hands for joy at the thought of baptism. And up to that point, I thought it was a really sweet tradition. But I'm standing there with all these other missionaries that are going home, and essentially disgraced. There's nobody in that room that doesn't have some just messy opinion about me, or at least has heard a rumor or something like that. And so I'm just, kind of tearing up, just thinking that this moment is not supposed to feel like this. and it just thinking about how quick things can go wrong and just really not feeling great about things. And then, they have all the missionaries go out into the foyer and line up, and they have all the, missionaries that are leaving to go back to their areas walk down this line and, handshakes and give hugs and stuff to the departing missionaries. And so by that time, I don't even know any of the missionaries in the mission. Because when you get old enough, like all the new kids come in and you just don't know them. So at some point, you just feel like a foreigner. Like this isn't your mission anymore.
And you don't care.
Not at all. Not even a little bit. They're all just like,
I saw you at a zone meeting once.
They're like, oh, so jealous. I'm like, don't be. Get out of here. Go do your mission. And then on down the line comes Paul Ramsell, like shaking everybody's hands and stuff like that. And he gets to me. And he shakes my hand, and he pulls me in for a hug. And he says in my ear as he's hugging me, I'm so proud of you. You did such a good job. And I guess you'd have to understand, there's a bigger picture here. Like, my last interview with Crump sucked asshole.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was not happy with me as a person. Like, I'm one of the reasons he actually shut down the whole going back to an area to baptize somebody stuff. Like, he just was not okay with me as a human. Whereas your last interview with your mission president is supposed to be something along the lines of, hey, what are your plans when you get home? Hey, that sounds great. Oh, good luck and stuff. Our last interview was just like, cool, well, see you around. Like, it just sucked. And so I'm leaving that and just hating myself for everything. And then Paul Ramsell he gives me the only thing that I've been able to take with me for the last 15 years as any sense of a guy who could get it, a guy who could understand what happened and who I am and all that, to pick me back up and tell me that it's okay. And it's to the point where, like, when I die, I acknowledge, my mom and dad will be there, there'll be a lot of ancestors and stuff like that. But just for nostalgia, there's just a part of me that wants Paul Ramsell to work his way through that crowd and give me a big hug and tell me that he's really proud of me and that I did a great job. Because weirdly, based on that experience, like, there's just nobody else I think that could tell me, what I did in a way that would mean something to me,
So the addiction thing started early. I was introduced to porn early, from a handicapped cousin and then also two friends. And alcoholism, when you're a fun person in high school, you get invited to a lot of places, and you're the class clown and you're a character. And I've always fit into that form. And the best thing that I did is clean myself up and go on a mission. And the best thing that happened to me was getting sent home, because I had to do some real reality check. Now after that, it wrecked me, for years, for more part of my life than I was a member. I was a non-member. So they sent me home. Once you start getting holes and voids in your life, and they take those away, you start filling them with whatever you can.
So just right away.
Let's say it's like a house. I came home, people treated me like I did nothing. People treated me like I was just partying on my mission. The same things. Once you get put with the assistants, you get that tart. Everybody's like, "What'd he do?" Oh yeah, this is what. Oh yeah, so piece of crap missionary didn't work. Far from the truth. You know what I'm saying? There is some missionaries out there that don't. And then there's missionaries out there that were struggling. And I'm not I won't ever be ashamed to admit that I had problems and that I needed the Savior and His atonement.
Yeah.
I got to that point in my life. But when I came home, I took, those holes are missing.
Yeah.
Eventually you're missing the ghost, they kick you out, they drum you up, they throw you out of the church.
Yeah.
Everything you believe in is taken away from you.
Yeah.
That was the hardest thing. It's like, wait, I'm kicked out, but I still believe.
Yeah.
I still love the gospel.
Who am I now that
I still have a testimony?
Yeah.
And then you go around and you see these people that get kicked out of church and they hate the church. They're opposite of the church. And no, I never did that. I always put the blame where the blame was deserved, me and Satan.
Yeah.
And the relationship that I fed into that. But those holes, they got filled with alcoholism, women, that stuff came easy. If you're a halfway decent looking guy and you got a personality and you can make jokes, that stuff's easy. I never had problems finding whatever I wanted, and I spent a good portion of my life, after my mission, just doing whatever I wanted to do, becoming an animal. I got to a point where I was drinking every day, fighting. I got a 3 to 5 year riding charge that I had to beat, and the only reason why I beat it is because the people I beat up said that I helped them up and said, "Are we finished?" And I was actually decent in the fight, but it was still a fight, and I was still out of control. It doesn't start out that way, but it slowly starts to get that poison.
Yeah.
If you look at Satan's plan, it was all about control, and everything that is bad in this world is still all about control. He still has the same plan. The drugs control you.
Yep.
The sex controls you.
Yep.
Porn controls you. Everything that is bad for you, alcohol controls you. And I know this because I've struggled with it. And it came so easy. When you first start out, it's great. But then over time it just eats you alive, and it takes everything that you care about. Like at one point I stopped myself because I was like, I'm angry all the time, and that wasn't my normal character. That wasn't my normal personality, is to be angry. My normal personality is to stop and help people change a tire, or go say something, or tell a joke, or find some little kid that I can mess with and play and teach something stupid, nothing harmful, but teach them something that's a different little character. And I realized that I let that personality go because I was being controlled, and I had many addictions: alcohol, women, there's tampering and drugs, where it just started destroying me, and it just started sucking me down. My life was falling apart, and the only reason why it wasn't all the way apart is because I had parents that loved me, and whatever prayers they were saying, and whatever prayers my family and the things that they were doing kept me from going totally off the edge.
Yeah.
And so then, I met my wife, and she had a kid, and she's just a decent person. I started dating her. I didn't tell her I was calling a parole officer when I started dating her. And, I was still kind of in that middle of those things. And, I ended up cheating on her. We broke up, and, while we were dating, and then, I ended up going back and dating her, trying to pull my life back in the thing. Once you're in a hole, you try to pull yourself out. And, at that time I was, trying coke, well, not trying it, but I was, doing a pretty good portions and stuff. And, I was actually working in a bar, working for the dealer, and, doing some of those things.
Oh, wow.
And, but when I met my wife, I had my mom, and she was just trying to pull me out of that hole, and then my wife kind of jumped in, and she tried to help, and she had a kid that was 4, and, she's trying to pull me out. And as soon as these women started playing bigger roles in my life, the beauty of women that I've always seen became more clear. So like, you know, I was trying to feel that beauty with sex or whatever, you know, and you can't even, you know, I got to the point where I'm like, I don't even know how many, you know, like it's just an endless pit, you know, and then my mom, my wife, the daughter, and then I had another daughter out of wedlock. I was like, I'm done. I'm done doing this shit. Like either I'm gonna be dead or in prison, because it could easily happen that way.
Yeah.
And it's came close a couple times, or I can start doing what I believe in and start doing the things that I know are necessary. And so I started cleaning up, and that process was bad. You know, like I just started cleaning things up as I had kids, and then I had another kid, another little girl, and you know, and we got married. Well, we got married and then had another little girl, and you know, I still didn't go to church and things like that. And so I eventually started cleaning up. You know, got off alcohol, got off all the drugs, got off stuff doing the women once I married my wife, and you know, and I cleaned up, and I was clean for 5 years, and my mom was taking my daughter to church, and my daughter, every time she had like a little talk, she'd ask me to come, and so they asked me to come to this class, and I said, yeah, I'll come to this class, it'll be a good little thing. And so I come, meet my wife, and it was about, because she was 7, and it was about her getting baptized, and it broke my heart to see her so happy that I was there at church. And it was something that I knew that I should have been doing a long time ago. And it wrecked me to know that I was not only neglecting myself, but I was neglecting everybody around me, my family, and that I had so much more spirit, so much more feeling to offer than I was. You know, then the next days came around, and I was like trying to justify not going back to church, because I'd sent a message to the stake president and said, hey, I need to meet with you. And he said, I've been waiting for this day. And so I, you know, I was justifying trying to get out of it. Like, no, now's not the time, And I was delivering air in this area and at work, and this guy came up to me, and he handed me a pass-along card and walked away. And I don't believe in little stupid miracles like that. You know, like when people say that stuff, it's like, shut up, dude. Like, but I knew what it was, you know, and I knew that our Heavenly Father had a very cool sense of humor, because I never valued a pass-along card. I thought they were the stupidest things I've ever seen. I'm like, why is the church wasting their money on these pass-along cards? And he handed me a pass-along card, and he looked at me, nodded, and walked away. And I sat there, and I was like, I didn't say it, but I looked up and I said, okay, I know it's my time. I know it's my time to wreck myself. I know it's not going to be easy. I know that I'm going to go into a stake that hates me. And I know I'm going to have to fix my life. And when I met with the stake president, I met with him quite a bit. He had to remove some people from the high council that didn't like my family, my dad, and he said that he didn't want them to be there. And the stake president was definitely pulling for me. And I sat there and I was like, what's going to happen if they tell me I can't get rebaptized? And he said, don't worry, I will make sure you will. And I think that was the best time ever, is to see, you know, like, see my family and all my loved ones get to watch me be baptized. It was a good day. You know, I started this process almost a year ago. You know, it was in July that I got baptized. I asked, you know, I like a little kid, I went and asked my dad, and I was proud that he accepted that he baptized me again. And I, you know, would make jokes. I hope this one sticks, you know, but it wasn't funny. It's been a long process, and you know, like I've had to humble myself But I know, God was pulling for me. My Savior was pulling for me. I think that sometimes people get so far that they don't, but it wasn't that case. Like I got so far, but I always felt that love, and I always felt like he was keeping me safe. And the part that breaks my heart is all the people I could have influenced and all the things I could have done. My life would have been different, and I know that. I know that I could have been somewhere in a great church, being a second counselor or something, something important, or working with the young men, or doing some of those things. But that's what breaks my heart is feeling like I neglected people that are around me, and I could have influenced those people. I just wasted so many years just being selfish or being lukewarm or being somebody I'm not, being somebody angry and addicted and scared to change, scared to do things, scared to tell people no. And that's when I reached out to you, because I think I waited to tell you for last, because I think that my choices directly affected you the worst. Because the things that I did, the things that I did, there was choices in there, and those people made those choices, so they're not innocent in this whole situation. You were innocent in the whole situation, and it directly affected your life. My family was innocent in those things, and it directly affected those lives. And, I've never really gone up and apologized to them until I was going to get baptized. And, I told them that, I'm sorry, and that they meant everything in the world to me, and that I let them down, and that I promise I won't let them down again. And I'm keeping that promise so far, and, hopefully I keep doing it. And I don't blame anybody for, my downfall.
I didn't until this moment.
You know what I'm saying?
Cow.
But you can't. Their roles are their roles. I said sorry for my role in that thing, but I can't apologize for their roles, and I can't be angry about it. And they haven't asked me for forgiveness, but if they do, I probably would forgive them, because I played a devastating role too.
During our companionship, I have a lot of memories of things that happened and what we were doing, what have you. But there's this one argument that we had that has just always rung in my mind as one of those moments where I was right about something, where you were just, arrogantly fighting me about something like that. But to hear what you're saying now, I never realized that, because what happened was we'd come home from, just another one of those nights, and it was probably late. It was probably like 11 o'clock at night, something like that. And
Jeez. It's like, how did we get to that?
I have no idea. I basically started talking about the fact that, our name
I'm
badges...
sorry for that part, my part in that role.
Dude.
I honestly am,
I know. I was basically just like, do you even know whose name is on your chest? And you were just like, yeah, I know whose name is on my chest. And at the time, I just saw you as pridefully combative.
Yeah.
With everything that we're talking about now, what I see is you were desperate to represent that name with honor, and you were just in a place that you couldn't figure out how to dig yourself out of. And that makes me see that argument in a totally different light. In the years that I've just been tossing the whole meat bill thing over and over and over and over again in my head, and just trying to figure out what could I have done better, or just any of those arguments you get in with yourself, and being too hard on yourself and what have you.
Yeah.
One thing that I've realized is, you look at what you did, you look at your impact, your influence on that period, and you see bad. You see that you failed, you see that you could have done better, you see that you hurt all these people, and you've been dragging that around.
Yeah.
What I now look at, or what I now see when I look at that space, is that you gave me access to understanding human growth, the growth that comes from doing painful things, or from being weak, from being less than, from not doing things right.
Yeah.
You gave me access to that I'm pretty sure if I didn't have that, I don't think my story, the way that I ended up coming back into the church, I don't think it would have happened. So I guess it's my way of saying one of the reasons that you're probably my favorite companion is that, yeah, my mission, I worked hard and I tried to love people and I tried to serve them and I tried to teach, because that's what we got sent there to do. I wonder if my mission didn't really even start until I got transferred to Meadville, because the part of me that needed to experience some human suffering, not for the purpose of hurting me, but for the purpose of showing me good and evil. It's almost like some of the transcendent spiritual experiences that I've had since then, I wouldn't have even had the perspective to recognize them if I hadn't already been in a really hard place and been confused and made mistakes myself. Meadville was not your fault. I could have picked up a phone, I could have called the mission president, and I could have stopped it. And I didn't. Partly because I got sucked into some of the same, I guess, the predatory stuff that was going on. The way people would talk to me, that people made fun of me for the first 2 weeks just because I was trying to be a good missionary, until eventually I was just like, all right, well, I'm going to stop behaving like that because I don't enjoy being poked at.
I know exactly how you feel.
I bet you do.
When I walked into that same thing, you know, it's you know, I do have the sorrow and all the pain that goes along with that, but I am grateful that it happened, because I know as a full-grown man, I've experienced what the one side has to offer, and it's empty, and it's lonely, and it's sad, and it leaves you with no choices and nothing. And I know now that going through all that shit, that I don't want to go back to that I don't need that, and that I don't want that, and that endurance lasts, and that I have to endure to the end. If I don't endure to the end, I know what I have waiting for me, because I've been there. To me, hell is in your mind knowing that you are so much greater, and that you could achieve so much more, and that you were such a better person.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it.
Yeah.
You're choosing to be something worse, and you're choosing to neglect everything, and to neglect your family, and to neglect your job, to neglect anything and everything, you know. But once you start crawling out of that, you're on this freaking high, and it's the best high in the world, you know. There's times, you know, they say that you'll never outperform your mission, and I never believed that. I always thought it was a bunch of crap, you know, you'll never be better than who you were on your mission. That's bull crap. How do you go through your mission? You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Your life experience.
They call it the best 2 years. It's I hope not.
You're not even married.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You don't even have an understanding of life.
Yeah.
And some of the things that go along with that. And I've experienced so many great things since I've changed. I knew in my heart that I've changed for the better, and that I was no longer in despair. I was no longer wondering and thinking and trying to figure out what I needed to do with my life. I wasn't confused. I wasn't, you know, I had that structure. You know, like I said earlier, you know, you build these houses and you just throw up these walls, and, you know, sometimes you throw in some pornography, sometimes you throw in some alcoholism, but I knew that my foundation was strong and it was structured, you know, because I got it from my parents, who taught me in the gospel, and taught me in love, and taught me about Christ, and taught me about Him, Father. And so I demolished my whole house, you know, last year, and I just started to rebuild it, you know, and you know, I'm throwing up good walls, and I feel like I want to build it right, and I feel like I want to do things right, and that I had to break myself down to do that. You know, it's not easy. It's not easy looking at yourself and being like, you're a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? It's time to grow up.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you beat yourself up, but then at one point you have to say, okay, I forget myself. It's time to make my life what I want it to be and what God wants it to be and what the Savior wants it to be. There's times where I'm like, well, if I went back to Pennsylvania like you are, who would I go see? You know, have they heard that, and are they going to be nice to me? Are they going to say something to me? Are they going to break? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
because at one point it's like, you can't break me down more than Satan has. I said that in my
The disciplinary
Yeah.
council?
yeah. You know, like I was worried about some of the people because they hated my family name.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of them said something to me, and I said, I'm not afraid of what anybody has to say in here or do. You guys can do whatever you want to do, but just know this, I will become a member of the church one day, whether it's here or whether it's later on. No one will stand in my way of becoming a member. And I go, none of you guys can do anything to me that Satan already hasn't done. And no one can say anything or make me feel guilty for anything that Satan already hasn't done. I'm not afraid to answer for those questions because I answered for them. And the only person that I owe is the Savior, because he's the one that paid for them.
I think a mission highlights your flaws in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And also presents you with a lot of opportunities to come to terms with those flaws.
Yes.
Especially where you're with a companion 24/7,
Yeah.
and not all relationships are ideal, and not all of them. Like, I'm trying to be tactful here.
You
but
really are.
Some companionships were really brutally hard for me.
Yeah.
But because my goal was to teach other people and bring them to Christ, like that had to take a back seat, and which is hard because it's constantly slamming you in the face, right?
Yeah.
You never get away from that person and
Yeah.
the things that just make you crazy about them.
Yeah.
But I think I cared a lot about presenting myself in a way that reflected positively on the church and on my family and on the Savior. And so while we've talked about I'm very upfront and honest person, I have a really hard time not expressing my true feelings. It was a learning experience for me to put aside my personal feelings about some of the companions and focus more on the work and focus on the positive things of our relationship and try to make it work anyway.
Yeah. We take with us into the mission field all of the flaws that we had in our old life. And maybe for the first 3 months or so, you're riding so high on the Spirit from the MTC, or just your own expectations of you, you're pushing yourself so hard that it feels like all those things are gone. Because you're just not feeling some of those same pulls to those
Right.
things or whatever. And I think it was like that for me. I think for probably maybe the first, arguably 6 months of my mission, I felt cured. And then before I know it, like just little habits and stuff were coming back, and it made me think from the sense that like I went through like arguably the most church discipline you can go through before I came out of my mission. Like it was about 2 years of going through a process. So having finally got out in the field and doing it, and then finding myself struggling with some of those same things, like I had to kind of ask myself, like, are you doing the right thing? Should you be here? Do you deserve to be here? Should you just go home and just, I don't know, start living life because this isn't for you? Because in my head, although I've been living mission life for 6 months, I think I was still trying to be the missionaries in the movies. I think I wasn't connecting to the fact that God, our Heavenly Father, when I submitted my application to be a missionary, He honored the calling of an apostle. And when my picture popped up in my little bio on that computer screen that they used to do that stuff, that there was a moment that my foreordination, whatever it is, was set into place because of who I am. That I, with all my faults, I got sent.
to Pittsburgh. And if I could just be patient with myself and the times where I'm not living my best self, that there would be moments that I would be blessed to be perfect in Christ. There would be moments that he would be there with me, and I'd get to,
And it transcends who you are in
Yeah.
that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
That's a
think
beautiful
as a missionary, what happens is, if you find it, I think maybe not all missionaries find it, you can get to a point where you realize that, sin and repentance isn't what you thought it was. It's not, man, I really need to feel guilty about this, and then I need to ask him to forgive me, and then I need to never do it again. The Bible dictionary definition of repentance doesn't actually even say any of those things. It says it's a translation of a Greek word that just means to change your perspective of who and what God is. So to repent is literally to say, okay, I'm doing things that don't make me feel great. And my current perspective of God leads me to believe that he also doesn't feel great about this. However, he sent his son to suffer unimaginably to give me space to make these mistakes. So if that's the case, how much does he really care on an individual basis about the mistakes that I'm making? Or is there something bigger going on here? And that's the moment when you start to see that God's not checking lists. God is looking at you, and he's watching you grow like a plant. He's watching you grow. He's watching you become something, and all he's focused on is what you're being and what you are becoming. And that's it. And I feel like I'm not sure that I got to that spot on my mission. I think I served my mission feeling very poorly about myself because I was carrying around things. I mean, I would do the right thing and talk to, President Cameron about it and get counsel, but, I just still felt lousy. And I guess maybe that's what I'm trying to understand from other people's perspective, especially you, somebody that I deem to be flawless in the sense that, again, what you present, what you work so hard to present is arguably and measurably flawless. I'm interested in, why are you hard on yourself? What about you is so, in your opinion, deplorable that you feel the need to be hard on yourself?
Can I tell you one of the hardest things I earned on my mission? I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and I kind of set a pattern in my family of excellence, and I wasn't a straight A student. I was pretty close, but I was active in a lot of things, sports and music and all that kind of stuff, and I went to seminary every day and earned all the seminary whatevers they were, and I did all of the things, and my parents would always tell me, "Oh, you're doing such a good job. I'm so proud of you." And that's like my love language. I've learned is the words of approval. Mm-hmm. And then so I always knew how I was doing, where I was at, and where I could do better. Mm-hmm. And then I went on my mission, and all of a sudden nobody was around that cared. President Cameron did, and he was wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. And I just sucked up every moment I was with him because I just felt such love radiating from him, and Sister Cameron as well. And I felt like I was doing the right thing and that I was where I was supposed to be. And but to not have my parents to go home to every night and bounce stuff off of them and get ideas and hear their approval and, "Hey, good job on that. Yeah, that was a great idea." And, it was just a totally different thing for me. And so I think part of why I was hard on myself is because I was always expecting more from myself because I never had anybody saying, "You're enough." I just thought that if I was a better missionary, then I would be bringing people to baptism every week, and because I wasn't enough, then the missionary work wasn't enough in my area. And I had thought about it. I was like, if my potential is to be like God, and I'm supposed to be doing the best I can, so why am I not being as good as God is? You know, like, I don't know, maybe that's hugely pretentious
That is like
to
the
think
most
that, but
powerful thing.
I thought that all the time. Every time I was like, just do the best you can. Well, my best is eventually going to be like a God, so why am I so careful? Or why am I so, I don't know, holding myself back in so many ways? I know. I struggled so badly with that.
You're
like,
feeling a way about that that's not. I mean,
Are you telling me I'm not normal? People don't think this.
I think more people do think that way than either they've consciously become aware of or that they'll admit. Especially in Mormonism, when yes, the entire doctrine of this church is that as
We're
man is,
aiming
God
for
once was,
perfection.
as God is, man may become. Like, we get it in our heads that we're going to get there someday, and so every day we're kind of just like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Because we have this perception of ourselves that we're just like, I don't know how it could be any better than this. Did you see how I crushed that day? Like, and obviously we're wrong, or we would be there. I mean, there's scriptural evidence of people being translated. Like, it happens. So if we're still here, it's probably because we're not right. And again, I think that's what repentance is. And if you reread the scriptures with that definition in mind, they're not saying, say you're sorry for the things you're doing wrong and stop doing them. They're saying, you're a child of God. You are of the house of Elohim. And you don't get it. You don't connect to that. And he wants you to. So change the way that you see him. And that first night when you drive out to your apartment and it's just you and this guy that you just met and he's like, there's your bed, see you in the morning. Like, it's just so solitary. Like, immediately you're just in the thick of, oh, I guess I get to be my best friend now until I figure out who this guy is. And
so I think that's a really important point that is so amazing about the mission field, to think that two individuals who have never met together are put together and said, you're going to be together 24/7, deal with it. And that it works out as successfully as it does. And sometimes, there are some rough edges that need to be knocked off. But I think absent being in the mission field, absent having been set apart as missionaries, absent the Spirit, it's almost impossible to think of that it could happen.
Yeah.
That two people with different cultures, different family values would just be put together and asked to work together.
Yeah.
And
100%.
It works out more often than not.
Yeah.
My heart reaches out to you missionaries. You simply cannot do it alone and do it well. You must have the help of others. That power to help lies within each of us.
They leave their homes, they leave their schools to serve their Lord, follow the rules, to rise each day, to fight the fight, to teach His word, to do what's right. They teach His plan, and every day they do His works in every way. They hold His standard up so high to bring His children to His side. They're elders, they're sisters, they're Satan resistors on errands of angels. He sends them to nations. They leave the dating world behind, their schools, their jobs, careers and lives. They spend their time and energy, they preach the word and bring the sheaves. And even in discouraging days, and through the rain and through the haze, they shine the light of God above into our hearts with all their love. They're elders, they're sisters, they're Satan resistors. On errands of angels, he sends them to nations. And even when they've all gone home, we know that we are not alone because of what they taught and said, and how they loved and how they led. They taught us of the Father's plan and all about the Son of Man, and how he came to bear our sins, and how his church is here again. They're elders, they're sisters, they're Satan resistors. On errands of angels, he sends them to nations.